Well, what was it? Was it Haile Selassie said that the Bible is the rallying point for all of humanity? Is it? Oh, that's his words. Is it is asking a good question. Well, to say is it, first of all, you'd have to be willing to go through that process and then scientifically say, is it? Because a lot of people, through ignorance, through second and third hand information, say, well, it didn't work for them, so therefore it's not going to work for me. Well, that's assuming that they had the instructions and they knew how to put the thing together, because if they didn't, how do you get the instructions? There's basic life. You know, before you can read a book, I suppose you've got family life. The sins of the father, the sins of the parents can directly have an effect on the way a child learns. Environment can have an effect on the way a child learns.
There was something in the paper the other day, about this young woman in an Indian society, probably in the hills, because it was saying how the elders of this village have foreseen, predicted some great bad luck related to this woman, which would make her in a priest-dominated type of society, a bad marriage prospect, because they've predicted some bad luck associated with this girl anyway. So, to overcome this bad luck, she was told to marry a dog. So she had the ceremony.
Was that in the paper?
Yeah. Yeah. To marry the dog. Which would give the dog the bad luck and make her next husband, once the divorce has come through, a bit more lucky. Now,
well, definitely has to be.
In theory, that's first of all saying about the...
You sure it said lucky and not licky?
The sense of these elders. Yeah? But then again, people might read that story and think, oh yeah, I'm going to visit this backward place in India, bringing my tourist dollars with me. But then, there's a whole bunch of... But the whole thing
plenty of sorcery and Simon of Magos. Can I buy that off you? Can I buy the healing of Jesus Christ off you?
What do you mean? Can I see how stupid and gullible some people really are?
Yeah. Yeah.
You really have that sort of power of manipulation. Yeah, that's like the priest. The whole thing, priests, done with priests, yeah? If it's not personal ownership and responsibility, if it's not messiahdom...
Well, done with priests is the same as done with the government.
Yeah, if you need to go through a priestly intermediary, then you've not understood, and the priest can't help you to understand. It's shocking, obviously.
Well, these days, is it a case of that you need to go through them because you don't understand, or is it a case of that collectivism, collective worship, unity of some kind, you know, the ties that bind, some will say. It sounds like slavery, but where is the meeting ground? Where's the place that we can convene? You know, we need time. We need time to mean the same thing for you as it does for me, so we can meet at 4 o'clock. Otherwise, we cannot convene anything. And if we cannot convene, every human being would be totally isolated. You know, these rituals are almost like extensions. Language is an extension of the peacock dance. You attract the mate. You know, the way you have to live life, you have to be more advanced, you have to investigate things and use all of your human faculties, all of your unique perceptions to get by in this modern world. The modern world has discovered more than just fire.
Like a peacock, you need your folly, don't you?
Your foliage.
Folly.
Folly? Explain.
A big, useless, or useless in any other regard, tail. Which, in terms of like a folly now, in terms of like 18th century architecture or whatnot, where you build something which is just superfluous to requirements.
Well, that may be true. However, if nobody ever, because nobody builds it like that anymore, we would have some boring architecture, I tell you. Nothing that would inspire us. And you know what?
Why do you say that? Why do you say nothing? That we could do nothing else but make follies.
Well, is it a folly?
Nothing else but follies.
Is painting art folly? Is making music folly? You ask some people, maybe they'd agree with you. But I think most people would say, well, the arts contribute to our human soul.
Most people would say there's a difference between, say, a Baroque style and a more conservative style. Without so many flourishes, it still does the job.
Were you talking Art Deco versus Baroque now?
No, Art Deco's a kind of Baroque, isn't it? Tricky.
Well, we're supposed to live in this plain cardboard boxes. Like 1984. Part of the reason we are who we are is because of the arts. As much as people find reasons to criticise it, you can also find reasons to say, well, actually, that's good. And some good can be found there. Are we balanced enough to accept the folly of our folly, which is in criticising that peacock for their tail? How dare you have a tail that's so attractive and exorbitant and unnecessary?
It's like a tiger who's just caught the peacock by its tail. It's saying, thanks for having such a folly of a tail.
Well, Tiger's got all of us.
Purely to impress others. Now, are we here purely to impress others, or are there more?
But you got to know what the tiger is in such a scenario, such an example. To me, the tiger would be the causality.
It's the definite ignorance which surrounds us.
The causality, cause and effect. The effect of ignorance.
Yeah.
That's what the tiger is.
So you get involved in your follies if you think that's important. Isn't that just buying into the whole state of ignorance?
Yeah?
It's good for the tigers though.
Well, they're the tigers as well. You see, they know how to manipulate these forces. They don't know. Because it's all types of people from all walks of life. Some of they is
you're talking about God?
No.
God knows how to manipulate. Yeah.
No. God, I'm not talking about God, but yeah, I would agree with you. I'm actually talking about people of the world that have learned the secret, know how to manipulate things to their own advantage. We all do it.
Got to put those people there to test you. So forget those people. It's about you, and it's between you and God.
Do we manipulate fire to cook food? Yep. To get a use out of it. Fire by itself.
Maybe it works best for the fire as well. Maybe the fire has been able to replicate itself by encouraging us to its use.
Do you believe in the 4 ages as represented by the 4 elements?
Do I believe in the 4 ages, the 4 elements? That's a bit simple.
As represented by the 4 elements.
Air, earth, water, fire. The ages according to them.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying which order.
Oh, are you talking horoscope things as well?
No, I'm just talking first of all from the elementals.
Are you talking about the Piscean
because
age,
elements
which
exist.
is like this sort of sign, and then
That's something else. That's something else. They don't exist.
But how can you say that?
Well, they're
in terms of what we see around
they're
us,
fictions. Fire exists, air exists, water exists, earth exists.
The amount of time that a constellation is in a particular position exists. It's one of the ways we calculate time.
But without gravity and light and all the rest of it. Anyway, I'll come back to that one. It's an interesting one, but the 4 elements.
So you've got cultures which have seen different stages of human growth, like a golden age, a silver age, a bronze age, a steel age.
Yeah.
Right.
And each one, the value of that particular metal is worth less and less. So it's almost as if it's been diluted. By the time it gets to all of us, it's brass You know, it's common metal. And it doesn't mean it's not fit for the purpose. Steel is very, very strong. Steel is an excellent metal, excellent material to build out of. But something's been lost, hasn't it? Because how do people feel about gold, which is also a metal? If you never knew anything about anything, and you was a baby, and you just looked at gold, and you looked at silver, and you looked at steel, and it was all highly polished, and
hang on. So what you're saying is that we've been through a golden age, and somehow gold's become the most worthless of metal.
No, I'd say we put value on gold in the first place. I'd say steel, as in our heads, become worthless. But if you had steel back in the day, and so say someone had a bronze sword and you call your steel sword,
you mean
steel would be like...
You mean ubiquitous? You mean like hardly anything's done without it? It's actually quite important to the runnings of the place.
How many pieces of gold would it take to buy a samurai sword built by the master?
I don't understand the point you're making about this, Jules. You were asking about the 4 ages. Do I believe in that?
Yeah.
If it was to say yes or no, what would be the point that you want to say
How
about
technology
the 4
has
ages?
been influenced by, I suppose, a way of thinking that indicates, a time and a season of things. So, like you said, in the golden age, life was lived a certain way, and you end up with what people perceived as a golden age.
Do I believe in a golden age?
Things weren't made of gold, were they?
I don't believe in any golden age which has already been and gone.
Okay. But historically speaking, you hear them talk of that time.
I am the threshold.
Isn't that way of thinking? A way of thinking that produces more of that type of thinking.
What?
Saying that it's impossible to get your golden age because it's all in the past.
No. It's bullshit talk. I won't have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you, but what's your reasons for thinking that?
The golden age which I am going to inaugurate. Steel age, bronze age, whatever.
Yeah.
All good days are to come.
Mm-hmm. But what about the state of man in his spiritual state? Does he believe he's in a golden age? Are we able to share this golden age?
What does it matter?
Is it commonly accepted this is the golden age?
What do people think? What do people know?
Well, people know what they think.
What's the use of judging them? Well, let them think whatever they think. We'll come to agreement when there's some
Well, how is it responsible?
Truth.
How is it responsible, knowing how things work, knowing causality, cause and effect, to just let them think what they think?
What do you mean causality?
Without being the teacher once in a while.
Effect it isn't necessarily a workable principle.
Explain.
One event follows another event doesn't mean it necessarily give a causal link.
Why? I'm not quite sure following you there.
Okay.
There may be
the door opened and the cup fell off the table.
Right. Okay. So yeah, you talk.
Is there some sort of causal link there?
Right. No.
What other event can you say where there is an easily recognisable causal link?
Well, the thing is, ethics and morality is that which happens to a human being. As I've said in the past, wisdom is the application of a certain knowledge which only applies to human beings.
It's a myth of a causal link.
Wisdom is a myth because it only applies to a state of being
wisdom
that advances the human condition.
By those who have it, it's recognisable. But morality establishes a causal link where there may be none.
Well, we're looking at this. What's this that's on now?
If there's Spartacus.
Spartacus.
If there's virtue to be had in a person.
Well, back in that time, the virtue was killing all your enemies.
Strong arm is virtue.
Yeah.
Is deafness with
maybe having
Strength and stamina.
female servants or slaves then
Maybe
in that time was considered a virtue also.
Honor and friendship was a virtue. That, you know, the bonds of friendship were.
But obviously we've changed today. We wouldn't call it a good thing
Today.
if people were throwing spears at people on motorbikes and killing them. That wouldn't be a good thing, you know. And is there a why? There isn't a good. That's a good thing. And actually, would you want it to revert back to the days where a man could just throw a spear at you and kill you? Would you want that?
Yeah, but we're talking about armies, yeah.
Even before there's an army, there's an individual with you know, an army was easily raised because people, you know, lived a certain life. It was life and death. You lived by the sword and you died by the sword. You know, and those that weren't living by the sword were still dying by the sword because others chose to live by the sword and inflict that on them. You know, here we are today. We'll look on that. How do you think people will look at that situation? What do you think about that? That's why to me all this stuff still exists and it still keep on existing because it's a case of, well, what do you think about that? We've come from that. There's no denying that. To deny your past history and the things that's happened to you, you're like a tree without roots. You'll go on making the same mistakes. And this is why the education system and certain things, they're very limited in their scope. And they'll do the same thing like they do in the Bible. They'll jump around from passage to passage. They won't read it from the start to the end and get the full story and the full picture as it's available to you. They jump around hoping that, you know, you cannot connect the dots. How can you connect the dots when you haven't got consecutive order to things? You know, again, that's how you live your life. You start with the first day and you go to the last day. You don't start in the middle of your life, do you? That'd be very confusing. Start in the middle of the life, but you got no knowledge yet, so you're in the middle of your life with no knowledge, and then at the beginning of your life you've got all your knowledge, and at the end of your life, you know what I mean, you got half the knowledge. That's not how it's done.